Good morning again. This is Susan King with Dominion Energy. We were going to get started about 5 minutes after the hour. I want to give people just another minute or two to join in. I see the participant list still coming through. We will get started though in just a second. Doug, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's go ahead and let's get things kicked off. Again, I see the participant list slowly ticking up, and I'm happy to see so many people joining us this morning. Again, this is Susan King with Dominion Energy. Welcome to our first in a series of B2B education sessions for our coastal offshore wind project. We're very excited to get these started. At Dominion, to say that we're excited about this project is an understatement. So to start to talk to you all, the folks that are going to make this a reality is a pretty special moment for us. So we are doing this meeting virtually, so just a couple of things I want to mention to you before I turn things over to Doug. We've muted everyone's audio. We ask that you keep it muted during the presentation just to cut down on any background noise. We'd also ask if you go ahead and turn off your cameras. Again, that just helps with connectivity and focus of video. If you're using, we'd like you to use the chat function to ask questions during the presentation. We have a large group of people joining us today. So if you have some questions, we have team members who are monitoring the chat who will send those questions to the presenter. So if they can address them during the presentation, they will. If not, we'll address them and week after the presentation is concluded. We will also take questions at the end of the meeting. So if you feel more comfortable and you want to ask them at the end, we invite that conversation. If you're accessing via your phone only, we will specifically ask you at the end to *6 to unmute. So that you can participate as well. And just as I always say, a warning, we will record this session. We are recording this session, and we will post it so that later on, if you have members of your team that you want to share this with, we'll have it out on our website for you to do so. And again, welcome this morning. We're very excited to get started. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Doug and let him start our welcoming. Thanks, Doug.
Well, Susan, thank you. Certainly a pleasure to be here with everyone this morning. Again, Doug Smith with the Hampton Roads Alliance. And Susan, if you'll pop up that first agenda slide. Excuse me. What we're going to do this morning is walk you all through a process of getting involved in a very exciting new industry. We'll have some opening remarks from Senator Louise Lucas. Certainly has not been a greater legislative champion for offshore wind, and more importantly, she's from my hometown of Portsmouth, so we're thrilled to have her with us this morning. And Catherine Bond will introduce her in just a moment. I'll come back and give a really quick overview of the broad opportunity, or the East Coast opportunity for Virginia and the role of our organization, and then the real meat of the agenda will be the presentations by John Larson and Dallas Simmons to talk about the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project that we call CVOW, and what that project is all about, and also what it's going to take to get yourself in the supply chain as a vendor for Dominion, or one of Dominion's prime vendors. Then we've got an exciting opportunity with Mr. James Jackson, who's going to talk about his experiences in working with Dominion and what that has been like. And then I'm thrilled that Port Authority VPA CEO John Reinhardt is with us, and he'll have some closing remarks. And as Susan said, would love for you to put questions in the chat box, and we've got folks monitoring that. We're thrilled to have over 300 people registered for this, so I think that's the most effective way to get your questions in and get your questions either answered today or after this event. So Susan, if you'll move us to the next slide, I'd love to introduce Catherine Bond, who is the Vice President of Public Policy and State Affairs for Dominion Energy, who will introduce our first guest speaker. So Catherine, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much. Really appreciate the introduction, and really appreciate everybody who helped organize and who's dialed in today. Introducing Senator Lucas, who really needs no introduction, I could tell you that she represents part of Brunswick County, part of Chesapeake City, part of Franklin City, part of Isle of Wight, part of Portsmouth, part of Southampton, part of Surrey, all of Emporia, all of Greensville, all of Suffolk, and part of Suffolk City. I could tell you that she serves as president pro tempore of the Senate. I could tell you that she chairs the Senate Education and Health Committee and sits on the Judiciary, Finance and Appropriations, Commerce and Labor, and Rules Committees, but I won't do any of that. Instead, what I will do is really tell you that Senator Lucas is in large part why we're here today. While Dominion has constructed the first 2 offshore wind turbines in federal waters in the United States, we really didn't construct those with the intent of only having 2 turbines. And when we talk about helping to diversify the Hampton Roads economy and what's next in terms of clean energy, in addition to investing significantly in solar and energy storage, offshore wind is a major part of that. Senator Lucas carried legislation that's going to bring literally hundreds of wind turbines to our region and is driving a lot of the economic development, recruitment of businesses, additional businesses to do business in Hampton Roads. The cost of a project itself will come down to the extent we can recruit businesses who manufacture and have other components related to offshore wind. There's no better hub for them on the East Coast of the United States than in the Hampton Roads region. We're pleased that there are so many people on the line today exploring opportunities to become part of that and grow your businesses as a result. So with that, I will turn it over to Senator Louise Lucas, again, one of the best champions of offshore wind that I know. Senator Lucas, thank you so much for being with us.
Senator, if you can go ahead and unmute. I know we were getting some echo from you, and I think you're trying to speak now, but I think you have a phone connected.
Offshore wind is a vital part of Virginia's clean energy strategy. And as a result of this past legislative session, Virginia is the first southern state to set a mandatory 100% clean energy standard. We will also be the southernmost state participating in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative Cap and Trade Program for carbon emissions. These pressures and the urgent need to address climate change in a deliberate way, which uplifts historically disadvantaged communities, demand that we take advantage of this abundant renewable energy resource awaiting to be harnessed just off the coast. Virginia's leadership recognizes the importance of offshore wind and has put policies in place that support the development of construction of coastal Virginia offshore wind at the executive level. Governor Northam's Executive Order 43 referenced offshore wind specifically as a central pillar of plans for expanding clean energy and growing a clean energy jobs for the future. For its part, the legislature has repeatedly expressed strong support for the development of offshore wind industry, first declaring offshore planning and development activities in the public interest in 2014. That support is reaffirmed with the passage of the Grid Transformation and Security Act in 2018 and Virginia Clean Energy Act earlier this year. The Clean Energy Act in particular sent a clear signal to regulators and the business community that we are serious about the coastal Virginia offshore wind project and the prospect of transforming the Hampton Roads region into a regional hub for offshore wind development. Those efforts culminated recently with Dominion Energy's installation of 2 offshore wind turbines as part of the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project. That project was the first of its kind to successfully navigate the federal permitting process. And thus, Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind boasts the first turbines located in the U.S. federal waters. The pilot has provided important experiences and understanding of what is required to develop, install, and operate offshore wind turbines off Virginia's coast. We're now moving forward with an even more ambitious development in an adjacent offshore lease area. Today, you will learn about opportunities to participate in the next phase of Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind, the nation's largest offshore wind project and the only one being developed by a utility company. I strongly encourage you to take full advantage of the information shared during this meeting. You will learn about the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project, the timeline, and how to qualify to be a subcontractor, vendor, or supplier. And critically, you will learn how to prepare your business to demonstrate all the necessary qualifications and requirements in order to meet with the subject and submit bids for Dominion's prime contractors when the time comes. I close on a personal note. In addition to the bill I supported this year, I have been proud to vote in favor of measures to support the development of the offshore wind energy on every possible occasion during my tenure in the General Assembly. My constituency and the Commonwealth as a whole stand to benefit from the once-in-a-generation economic development opportunity that Coastal Virginia offshore wind represents. Our success is fully realizing that opportunities begin with each of you here in this room. I thank you and enjoy today's session.
Well, Senator Lucas, thank you. Those were fantastic comments, and we're grateful for your long support, particularly the most recent support, and appreciate you very much being here this morning. I'm going to take a moment, as I said, and just walk you through a big overview of the East Coast and a quick couple of minutes about our organization, because we are, at this point, the tip of the spear for developing the supply chain hub here in Hampton Roads in particular. So next slide, please. I think most of you on the call realize this. We're developing really an industry from scratch here in Hampton Roads and in the Commonwealth. And and while we're going to focus on Virginia today, it's important to understand that there will be $50 to $100 billion of development off of the East Coast. 21 projects in different stages at this point that will develop renewable energy for millions of homes and businesses. And we really do have a unique opportunity to service many of those facilities with your businesses from Hampton Roads. Next slide, please. And why? The fact is Virginia has some very real advantages, and if you're on this call, you know that the commitment that the Commonwealth has made to the infrastructure for our port has been significant these last several years, including deepening and widening the channel. Our basic DNA is a maritime industrial base, and so we love to say that America builds great ships, and we build them right here in Hampton Roads, and we do that with a very effective and large maritime workforce that has the skill set that will work well in this industry. We're also, while we're blessed with assets at particularly Portsmouth Marine Terminal and Newport News Terminal, we also have a number of waterfront sites. I'll touch on those in a moment, many of which are privately owned along our rivers here in the region, and certainly appreciate the pro-business climate that Virginia has. But at the end of the day, we have unique, unfettered access to the Atlantic Ocean with this naturally deep harbor. In a wonderful location. Next slide, please. I would tell you that we've done a competitive analysis of our peer communities up and down the East Coast, and we don't think anybody can match those advantages. Our organization really works with, and you'll see a slide in a moment, with a number of different groups to try to collaborate and bring high-wage, high-skilled jobs to this region, both with new companies and with existing companies, and certainly offshore wind fits that space very well for us. Next slide, please. So we do exactly what you'd expect us to do. We represent the region on a global basis. We try to be the interface for companies, again, looking to locate here, and for companies that want to grow and expand. And today really is very much about helping Virginia businesses, Hampton Roads businesses, understand the opportunities in this supply chain and give them a chance to grow their businesses. We also work to bring the right kind of research and intelligence. And I'd encourage you, if you want to do a deeper dive in the economic impact of these projects. Mangum Economics did a report for us of the economic impact of first the CVAL project, but also the East Coast developments. And that's on our website at HamptonRoadsAlliance.com or 757alliance.com. Next slide, please. It's really quite simple. Our goal is to build an offshore wind hub here in Virginia. And what we think that creates some wonderful opportunities during the construction phase, but it also creates literally a generation of jobs through the operation and maintenance phase and the lifetime of these turbines. So again, we are trying to attract and grow business here in Hampton Roads and in the Commonwealth. And I keep saying Hampton Roads and the Commonwealth because we're really fortunate in that the Commonwealth, through the Go Virginia, has given our organization about $500,000 to stand up an office for offshore wind. And I think I'll talk about that on the next slide. We've spent a lot of time making sure that Virginia speaks with a consistent voice. Obviously, you've got an industry that is predominantly in Europe today. And we want to make sure that whether it's the folks at the Mines, Minerals, and Energy or Virginia Economic Development Partnership or our organization, we are providing consistent marketing materials. We are providing a consistent message and voice. And so we are constantly interacting with the folks on this screen, and we are on standing calls with all of them literally a couple of times a week. Next slide, please. And just what we've been up to since getting that grant back in the spring. I won't read the list here, but the important things are, I mentioned the study we've done. We've stood up the office here, run by Matt Smith, our director for offshore wind. We've also stood up an office in Frankfurt, the Hampton Roads Alliance for Offshore Wind. And now we're starting this really education process. And today is the first step in what will be a series of webinars to try and make sure that you all really understand what the opportunities are and how you can position yourself to take advantage of those. Next slide, please. And then next year, just again, I start out with this idea of educational programs. So please stay tuned. I'm going to show you a slide in a minute of how to register to get in the directory for offshore wind for Virginia. We have developed a strategic plan, much of which we'll share publicly, some of which will be a little bit of our trade secrets, if you will. And so we'll keep that a little bit closer to the vest. But we want you to understand that Virginia has a very well thought out plan for developing the supply chain hub here in Hampton Roads. And I think we can go to the next slide. So I'd encourage you to go to Virginia, VAOffshorewind.org. Many of you have. Frankly, that's how you got invited today. But that is really the best opportunity to make sure that the Port Authority, that VEDP, that the Mines, Minerals, Energy, all of us that are involved in this space know who you are, know how to get in touch with you. Reach out to any of us, and we'll make sure that you get what you need to be successful here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So next slide, please. So this is, I really have enjoyed getting to know John Larson and his team. And John is the Director of Public Policy and Economic Development for Dominion Energy and does a fantastic job of really giving you an overview of what the project is, what the timeline is, and what the opportunities are to get into this supply chain. So with that, I would introduce John Larson.
Doug, thank you so much for the introduction. I can honestly say it's a pleasure to be working with Offshore Wind again. I joined the team back in the early part of the last decade to work on the pilot project that you see in the picture on the right-hand side with the governor. We're very excited to have that installed. But wow, 2020, what a year of change for all of us. Between the COVID crisis and social justice, and as the senator remarked, in Virginia, the most substantial change in energy policy since the 2007 Re-Regulation Act. So as part of that, that act, you know, really our legislature and then the governor signing the bill into law, you know, set standards that lead the company to achieve a 100% carbon neutral generation fleet by 2045. And it includes 5,200 megawatts of offshore wind to be constructed and in service by 2034. Specifically, what we'll talk about today is the CVOW commercial project, which is estimated to be up to 2,640 megawatts and in service by 2028. As was mentioned earlier, CVOW will be the largest generation project the company has undertaken, the first large project owned by, and the only project owned by a utility. So today in the presentation, we'll talk more about the project, economic development, and business-to-business opportunities. So if we move to the next slide, I thought I'd take a real brief moment just to provide a quick overview of offshore wind and how does it work. So in this graphic, it's focused specifically on the offshore wind installation and the interconnection. It does not include obviously quayside, warehousing, vessels, and those types of operations that are integral to the success of building and operating an offshore wind facility. But if you think about it, for offshore wind, foundations are in the seabed that go down. And then you have the yellow piece that you see here, which are transition pieces, which come from the seabed up to above the water level. And then attached are the towers and the wind turbine itself mounted on the top of the tower with the nacelle and blades, as you see. There are cables that run in between the turbines and then go to an offshore substation. The substation is really no different than any substation that you see as you may drive around town. It'll be built up on a platform above the sea level, and there will be 3 of those for the CVOW project. Coming from each one of those will be 3 cables, so 9 cables in all coming into shore. And then about 1.5 miles offshore, there'll be a vault where those cables are then taken and using HDD drilling, will go underneath the beach and come out behind the beach, where the wires will then go to a collector station, and those cables will then be interconnected to the transmission and distribution grid to provide power to the homes and businesses in Virginia. So that gives you a quick overview of the anatomy of an offshore wind project. I'll move on real quickly to the next slide and talk a little bit about the CVOW pilot project. Many of you may ask, why did Dominion choose to start with a demonstration project versus jumping straight into larger offshore wind development, as many of the early developers did in the Northeast in the last decade? The company felt it was most prudent course of action for exploring offshore wind because there were unclear and untested regulatory approval processes at state and federal levels at that time. And the generation technology was rapidly evolving, and there was certainly no domestic supply chain. And with moving forward to be able to test the market and those regulatory processes offered an opportunity with a pilot project to mitigate the risk as we move to a larger project for all the stakeholders involved in the coastal Virginia offshore wind. Worked very closely with the Commonwealth of Virginia through DMME. They were very supportive from the start and engaged with BOEM, that's the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, to become the leaseholder for the research lease. It's the only research lease in the United States. After DMME secured the pilot project lease, then we began to work closely with DMME to become the developer and operator of the 12 megawatt installation that's operational today with 2 6-megawatt turbines that are located 27 miles offshore. Just to give you an idea of the scale of the turbine, that turbine from the tip of the blade down to sea level is approximately 600 feet tall. That's the height of the Washington Monument. So pretty significant and large installation. We learned a lot as we went through that installation. While both being new and challenging, we were able to successfully navigate permitting and regulatory approval, get through the design and all the environmental studies and analysis. And now we're preparing for the commercial operations here around the end of 2020. The most exciting was what we learned in working with Boeing through the permitting process and how that has informed and prepared us and given us confidence as we move forward with the development of the larger commercial project. I'll jump to that on the next slide. And as we move into a discussion about the commercial project, many of you already may know it will be directly located adjacent to the pilot project on a Boeing lease that is about 113,000 acres in size. We filed a PJM interconnection request to connect to the grid for up to the 2,640 megawatts. And we've moved forward with selecting Siemens Gamesa as our preferred turbine supplier. And we have engaged Ramball as our owner's engineer. Both of those firms have extensive experience and work in Europe for offshore wind. One thing about the turbines, I mentioned rapidly evolving technology. Now the turbines have moved from a 6 megawatt size to a 14 megawatt size, and they've grown in height to 800 feet versus the 600 feet. So if you think about that, that's roughly an 80-story building that will be constructed offshore for each one of the turbines. The project activity really picked up in 2020. We had 7 vessels out in the wind energy area and along the cable route, conducting oceanographic and environmental studies. And these studies collected a lot of important information that was required for our submittal for the construction and operations permit to Boeing. And we expect to submit that in the very near future in December of this year to move forward with the federal approval for the project. During 2020, Dominion also announced a consortium to build a wind turbine installation vessel, as well as a crew transfer vessel to support CVAL's installation and operations. Both of those vessels will be based out of the Port of Virginia. From a commercial activity, which I'm sure you're all interested in, we're moving forward right now with RFIs and RFPs with the major prime offshore wind contractors and installation firms. And we plan to move forward with that activity and wrap up executing the major agreements by the end of 2021 at the latest. Similarly, if you look at the schedule on the right, we're proceeding with the regulatory approvals. I mentioned the Boeing submittal for the construction and operations permit, and that will go in, as I said, in December of this year, and we would expect approval in 2023. And then in 2022, we will be submitting to the State Corporation Commission for their approval at the state level, and would expect to get that approval in 2022 as well. From the construction aspect, just to give you an idea, the construction will start in 2024 and move in phases and hit the final construction phase and commissioning in 2026. On to the next slide. So I wanted to now talk a little bit about the economic impact analysis. As Doug referenced, the Hampton Roads Alliance commissioned Mangum Economics to conduct an economic impact analysis for CVAL and the impacts that it can bring to Virginia for annualized jobs, economic activity, and taxes around the project. And those projections are that the project alone, just CVAL, will create approximately 900 jobs annually with $143 million of economic impact during construction. And as we move to operations, that number is 1,100 or 1,100 jobs and about $210 million of economic impact annually. Similarly, during the construction, local and state entities will benefit from tax revenue starting at $5 million a year during construction and moving up to $11 million a year during operations. The report also included an evaluation of a robust supply chain development, in essence, a hub to serve the East Coast offshore wind that Doug referenced. And the successful establishment of that, with the successful establishment of the Mid-Atlantic Offshore Wind Hub, it's estimated that 5,200 jobs will be created in Virginia, with about $740 million of economic impact and close to $40 million of local and state tax revenue. I move to the next slide. As we look at the jobs and opportunities, and that ties very close to the business opportunities, and do a deeper dive into the analysis that that Mangum conducted. The maximum number of jobs will occur in the manufacturing and installation phases as they overlap during the project. And this is typical for offshore wind projects, as they are typically multi-year efforts due to construction windows that are established to avoid aquatic species migrations and poor weather seasons. So it's projected that there'll be over 1,500 jobs in 2024 and 2025 when manufacturing and installation overlap. Once operational, as we said before, about 1,100 jobs will be needed to inspect, maintain, and repair the turbines on an annual basis. Dominion expects about 200 of those jobs will be employed by the company, and the balance will come from supporting contractors and suppliers. One thing I do want to note here, there are several key factors that will really increase or decrease that offshore wind job creation and business opportunity. Certainly, as Bowen moves forward with the notice of intents, which is when they publish schedules for the approvals of the projects, maintaining Virginia's favorable offshore wind policies that Senator Lucas referenced, being able to maintain the low cost of business in Virginia, having strong workforce development programs, and then, as Doug referenced, the natural advantages of the Port of Virginia, no overhead height restrictions, and the availability of marine terminals. And so you can see there's a lot of activity. It's spread out over a period of time, but very interesting dynamics as you see the job curve here. If we move next to some of the representative jobs and skills by the project, and I know this is a little bit of an eye chart, but the idea here was to provide a representation about the diverse opportunities that occur throughout the project. So if we pause for a moment and look at this slide, you can see that many of the jobs are unique to CVAL and offshore wind or a maritime environment, such as naval architecture, oceanographic and port study engineers and technicians, divers, offshore wind technicians, and then all the maritime jobs around vessel construction, operation, and maintenance. But I want to call out that as you review this table, you'll see that many jobs are not really unique to offshore wind. And as you think about your businesses, think about what you may be able to offer, whether you are a supplier or a contractor. CVAL is not unlike any other large energy infrastructure project where project management, safety, transmission and distribution construction, and the more so thought of as traditional skilled trade workforce are very important. But let's not forget, salespersons, hospitality workers, food service, and transportation are all going to be required to support offshore wind. Lastly, again, I want to point out that Dominion believes that it will hire about 200 employees in this, and that the balance of the hiring will be done by contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers, such as yourself, as we move forward with these jobs and roles. So let me take a minute and talk a little bit. I showed some of the skills and jobs that are needed for the training on this last slide. And we're working very closely with the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, and we'll be publishing a full list of jobs and products and services that will be available for you to review and further investigate how your business may be able to support offshore wind. And then as we move forward, the cables are expected to come ashore at Virginia Beach, then go over and interconnect as we move forward to the electric grid through a couple of substations. So that's what the current plans are. The pilot project is connected at the State Military Reservation, and that's where that interconnection has been made and connected to the grid. So if we move to the next slide, want to talk a little bit here about creating a clean energy workforce. And really that is a critical to success item for CVOW and establishing Virginia as the Mid-Atlantic Offshore Wind Hub. As developing that large and diverse skilled workforce. It has to be capable of supporting not only CVOW, but other Mid-Atlantic projects such as Avangrid's Kitty Hawk project and the projects to our north that Doug referenced in his information. So new training programs must be developed, some existing programs expanded, along with active recruiting of a new wave of workers that will be prepared when these job opportunities present themselves for your business. Another important aspect with respect to workforce developments are the requirements of the Virginia Clean Economy Act, providing economic opportunity for Virginia's businesses, and then really a priority on hiring veterans, local workers, and workers from historically economic disadvantaged communities. And by working together, we can provide opportunities for many high-paying clean energy jobs. And we're not taking a back seat to this effort. The company is extremely active and beginning work with all levels of Virginia's education system, as well as many regional and state agencies. The Clean Energy Workforce Initiative is focused on assessing the current capabilities that are there, identifying any gap, and filling the shortfalls in curriculums so the state's prepared to offer a full suite of workforce development programs that are really required to construct and operate offshore wind technicians. To that end, Governor Northam recently announced the Mid-Atlantic Wind Training Alliance, comprised of New College Institute, Centura College, and the Mid-Atlantic Maritime Academy. And this partnership will bring courses that are certified by the Global Wind Organization to provide certification for workers to do offshore work, and then offshore wind technician training. So it's easy to see and recognize Virginia is extremely committed to and has made investments to support the professional and skilled workforce development to support Mid-Atlantic offshore wind. If we move to the next slide, let me take a moment here and talk about the effort here. And this is the first phase of a multi-phase effort to work with businesses to really chart a course to become the Mid-Atlantic Offshore Wind Hub. And we've extended, obviously, and see a very close intertie between workforce development as well as the business-to-business opportunities. So there are a lot of opportunities for existing and new businesses to provide a wide range of products and services for CVOW and the Mid-Atlantic offshore wind industry. I think you can see by the number of different jobs and skills that we reviewed on the table earlier in the presentation that the opportunities are wide and far-reaching for Virginia businesses to establish themselves as the nation's leader in offshore wind business and to really experience great opportunity and growth. And this new workforce must have businesses prepared to serve the offshore wind industry and offer employment and allow them to reap the rewards of their educational investments. So as Doug mentioned, We have multiple calls weekly with Hampton Roads Alliance and different organizations to develop a series of these educational seminars like we're having today. The first one is really sharing what we believe these opportunities to give you awareness and the expectations of how we plan to move forward with the project. And then this next phase we're working on is making sure to prepare your business for success and to provide opportunities for you to then learn more about offshore wind. The last thing you want to do is walk up to one of the prime contractors and say that you want to work on the windmills. They're wind turbines, they're not windmills. So we're working on opportunities to provide training so you can better understand the components and the different aspects of the wind turbine supply chain and best assess where you have opportunities or how you might expand your business to reach new opportunities. And then certainly, as we move forward and complete our commercial activities with the prime contractors, we'll host the traditional vendor and construction expos where we'll have the opportunity, and hopefully we'll be through this COVID crisis and be able to have these in person so that you can meet with the different vendors and present your company and talk about your company as we move forward. So that's really moving through my presentation. And Doug, I'll turn it back over to you to introduce Dallas.
Well, John, thank you. Fantastic overview. And I really like that slide 22, the representative skills and jobs, because it really does give a good sense of the breadth and variety of jobs that are available. So thank you for that entire presentation. Dallas Simmons is the Supplier Diversity Program Manager for Dominion Energy, and he's going to give an overview of the supply chain opportunities and the requirements, again, to do business with Dominion and their prime vendors. So good morning, Dallas.
Hey, good morning, Doug. Thanks for the introduction. Next slide, please. So first question, who is Dominion Energy? So we operate in 16 states from Connecticut to Georgia to California, offering safe, clean, reliable, and affordable energy to nearly 7 million customers. We're headquartered in Richmond, Virginia, and we invest in the communities where we live and work. Our goal is to shape the future of energy in America. At Dominion Energy, we have 5 core values. The first and most important goal is safety. We want to make sure our employees go home safe and sound every day. The second value is ethics. Our reputation depends on ethical behavior, and we don't take any shortcuts. Third is excellence. We work towards continuous improvement in all areas of our business. Fourth is embracing change. We welcome new ideas and innovation. And last, but definitely not least, is One Dominion, which is our definition of teamwork. Next slide. Although supplier diversity is not a core value at Dominion, it is very important to us. We support diversity in the supply chain because it's smart business and the right thing to do. We are supported by a diverse population, and we believe we have a responsibility to reciprocate. A diverse supplier base leads to improved supplier performance, competitive pricing, and enhanced creativity and innovation. We set rigorous annual corporate goals for spending with diverse businesses. Our partnerships with diverse suppliers translate into economic growth and increased employment opportunities in the communities we serve. We actively partner with government agencies, minority business groups, and advocacy organizations to develop sourcing opportunities for diverse suppliers. Next page. We proudly support minority, women, service-disabled veteran, HubZone, veteran, small disadvantaged, LGBTQ, and disability-owned businesses. We encourage our diverse suppliers to have a third-party certification, but we do not require it. The exception to the rule is HubZone businesses. HubZone businesses must be certified by the Small Business Administration. Next slide. We rely on safe, dedicated, competitive, ethical suppliers in order to produce and deliver power to our millions of customers. In order to work with Dominion Energy, we ask that you register in our supplier portal via our website, dominionenergy.com. By registering in our portal, you are introducing your business to our sourcing team. When an opportunity arises, our sourcing specialists and category managers will search our portal for companies that can provide the services needed for that particular opportunity. If you have interest and experience in renewables, make sure you check the appropriate box when registering in the portal and/or on the subsequent questionnaire that will be emailed to you. Next slide, please. Our supply chain team works closely with our business segments to make sure we include qualified suppliers to participate in our bid opportunities. Should your company be invited to participate in a bid opportunity, make sure you understand and provide all required documentation requested in the bid package. The bid package will normally include instructions to bidders, scope of the work, contractor safety data sheet, terms and conditions, and a supplier diversity requirements package. Next slide. The bid team will normally consist of the buyer and business unit representatives. And during the bid process, make sure you adhere to all of the bid parameters, provide complete responses, and adhere to all due dates. You'll be asked questions about your safety, your OSHA, EMR, and DART rates for the past 3 years. We will ask you if you had any environmental violations or agency reports in the last 3 years. Please provide cost information in the proper format and document any assumptions if possible. Provide a summary of how the work will be accomplished and provide references. You will need to confirm acceptance of our terms and conditions or provide a redline version for our team's review. If you are not classified as a diverse supplier, are you providing subcontracting opportunities for diverse suppliers? At Dominion, our goal is to have our non-diverse prime suppliers offer at least 20% subcontracting opportunities to diverse suppliers. The winning bid will be awarded to the supplier that offers the best value proposal and most favorable terms and conditions. Next slide. If you have any questions about my presentation today, please contact me at the email above, supplierdiversity@dominionenergy.com. And if you'd like to register in our supplier portal, please do so via our website at dominionenergy.com. Thank you for your time today. And now I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Mr. Joe Jackson, President and CEO of Pipeline Petroleum Services. Pipeline Petroleum Services is a small, minority-owned industrial pipeline and tank service company headquartered in Chesapeake, Virginia. They are a valuable supplier for Dominion Energy and have been for many years. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Mr. Simmons. How are you today?
Doing great.
Great. I'd like to thank everyone. Mr. Simmons, I'd like to thank you for your invitation to share our story. Like I said, Pipeline Petroleum Services, we've been in business now for 14 years. Our services are provided throughout the U.S., primarily for U.S. military-owned bases and fuel depots. However, our main customer has always been Dominion Power, Dominion Energy now. In fact, The business model of our core service is directly based on the service needs and requirements of Dominion. There is no other client that uses our full complement of services like Dominion. There have been projects where we've used every one of our services at once. Our employees are skilled with years, 25 to 36 years each of experience. We do not send work crews to a site, we send a team. Core services include, but are not limited to, pipeline integrity, pressure testing, hydraulic, temperature compensating, or pneumatic with inert gas. Results are monitored and recorded using third-party calibrated and certified instrumentation and equipment. Above ground storage tank cleaning, bulk fuel transfers, including the design, setup, and operation of temporary fuel transfer systems, coordination of off-site transportation, manifest documentation, chain of custody. We also provide temporary on-site bulk fuel storage systems, setup and maintenance of temporary fuel storage on-site during major fuel storage tank outages, including temporary tank truck offload stations for replenishment of the portable system, mechanical maintenance and repair of our fuel system, piping and associated components, pipe cleaning for inspection, repairs, or demolition. Cleaning consists of what they call pipeline pigging, mounting a mechanical cleaning tool to a pipeline propelled by compressed air, gas, or the system product. We also offer industrial and confined space rescue standby, monitor spaces occupied by other contractors. PBSI personnel will receive their training and certification at the ROCO Rescue Training Facility in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And we are looking to diversify in other areas as things develop. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, I really appreciate that perspective, and thank you for being with us this morning. As we're getting close to the 9 o'clock hour, I would tell you that just as this project would not be happening without the legislative support of Senator Lucas and others in the General Assembly, without the vision that John Reinhardt and his team had for understanding the opportunity for offshore wind and the ability for us to put Portsmouth Marine Terminal and possibly Newport News Marine Terminal in the stream of commerce for offshore wind with development-ready facilities really puts Virginia at a strong advantage. And John Reinhardt really is known to everybody on this call. You know, he's the CEO of the Port of Virginia, and prior to that, served with Maersk Lines and the Maersk. He was with the Maersk organization for 23 years. Spent 14 years as the CEO of Maersk Line Limited, and held a variety of positions there, including president, senior vice president, regional director. You all know that he is on a number of regional and statewide boards here in Hampton Roads and in Virginia. And we're thrilled to have John Reinhardt with us this morning to make a couple of closing remarks. Mr. Reinhardt.
Well, thank you, Doug. Thank you very much. And thanks, everybody, for joining this forum this morning. I think it's an exciting time, and it's really, the traction is beginning to happen. You know, at the Port of Virginia, we were thrilled a few years back when it was announced that the offshore wind pilot or test would be done by Dominion. And we have been looking at how we can help facilitate and grow the supply chain hub here in Virginia for the Dominion larger project that is now underway. Coastal Virginia offshore wind is going to set the standard for the East Coast, and we can grow through this. The case for the Hampton Roads region to emerge as a preeminent hub for offshore wind development for the East Coast is very clear. We have a capable workforce, we have a prestigious educational group, we have a good business climate, we have a partner in Dominion that's leading the way, and we have, as was said before, some facilities that can be transformed for production, laydown, supply, and support. And working with the maritime educational training, the hub that we have here, we really are poised to grow and be a leader for many decades to come in offshore wind. that no air draft restrictions should not be overlooked, because we have deep water, but we have no bridges or tunnels, bridges that we have to deal with because of the tunnel system here in Virginia. That is very important. As you probably know, the governor has been very all in, as has the legislature, as Senator Lucas mentioned, and they have, even in the COVID budget, kept $40 million for infrastructure improvements at the marine terminals to help facilitate the growth of the supply chain for the offshore wind. So the Commonwealth is all in on this. The Commonwealth recognizes that this can be a transformative industry, and we can grow jobs here across the Commonwealth. And also with all of your companies, you will have an opportunity to grow. So this is an exciting economic opportunity development prospect for Virginia. It's one of the largest I can remember since I've been here, and I have been here for 21 years in Virginia. I encourage all of you to take the time to consider what you have learned today through this forum, and look at your own companies and see what skills and what talents you have, or what you may need to develop to be a valuable supplier to the supply chain that Dominion is looking for. If we look further down the road, these meetings will continue, and I applaud Dominion and the Alliance and Doug for talking and raising the awareness, and for all of the efforts underway. And again, Doug, that you setting up the offshore wind office at the Alliance was very important, and we at Go Virginia saw that that was an important step. Please look at the opportunities, folks. They're great. They're going to go on for decades. Dominion Energy, we want to thank you for all that you've done, because you see the benefit of offshore wind, and you see the renewables as a future for the Commonwealth. And we really want to thank you, and your disciplined approach to design, engineering, and procurement are applauded. I want to thank all of you for participating in this session. I hope you position your businesses and take full advantage of this golden opportunity that is in front of you. I want to thank all of you for being involved in the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind, and I look forward to your partnership. We at the Port of Virginia are all in, trying to make sure that we do anchor this industry in Virginia to support all of the efforts up and down the East Coast. I hope each of you have a wonderful day. I also hope each of you have a safe and healthy holiday season, and that we all go into 2021 and set the foundational work needed to be able to grow offshore wind here in Virginia. So with that, Doug, thank you, and thank all the participants.
Well, John, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. Great close. You've got some comments here, or a sheet here in terms of how to register. I also see in the chat that Jen posted the website for the virtual platform. If you didn't get a chance before the call to go into that virtual platform, it's fun technology, but more importantly, there's really good information out there. So we are just after the hour, 9:03. I think we've done as best I can tell, a pretty good job of answering the questions in the chat box. I don't think we missed any. If we did, I think there's a slide, Susan, that's got a website, an email address, coastal VA wind at dominionenergy.com. So if we didn't have a chance to answer a question, obviously reach out to any of us, the alliances, HamptonRoadsAlliance.com or 757alliance.com. Would certainly welcome any questions. And this, again, is the first step in a process of educating our business community about the opportunities and the process for getting involved in this tremendous project. John, I see you flipping your video on. Do you want to make a comment?
Well, yeah, Doug, there was one or two questions that had popped up. I was just gonna quickly answer if people are interested in staying on the line. I think I talked about the skills in the slide, and the cable landfall coming in at Virginia Beach and those items. There was one regarding the educational system and workforce, and Virginia is very fortunate with great educational institutions. I mean, compared to many other states where offshore wind is being constructed, I feel that Virginia offers premier education, starting at the K through 12 level, all through the four-year colleges and universities. To that extent, we've already kicked off an effort called Workforce Wednesdays, where we met with community colleges. We've had some follow-up conversations with a couple of community colleges talking about their curriculum, what needs to be added, where they could focus, or how they could expand their programs. And then also, more importantly, making sure that we work on the pathways for men and women who are interested in joining the offshore wind workforce to get to that training through all the various communities. And certainly we know Hampton Roads will be, a focus and a hub of that. And to that extent, we're working with many of the, as I mentioned, the school systems there, community colleges, as well as the 4-year programs. And we participate with the program that Paul Olson at ODU has tied to a Go Virginia grant as well to work on workforce development. So very closely aligned with that to get these pathways there for the jobs. There was another question, and Doug, you may want to chime in on the amenities of facilities for manufacturing sector. Certainly, I think I'll let you jump on that and what you may have seen with, I think you've had a number of companies in just the past couple of months. It's really ramped up significantly with the advancement of the project and the pilot project.
Yeah, we really have. I've told a number of folks this, but we had a few visits over the summer, literally 2 or 3, and just in the month of October we had 19, and that's people literally coming, and so we're seeing a lot of interest virtually as well. I think I mentioned the sites. I think everybody focuses on PMT and Newport News Marine Terminal, but there are another 20 or 21 sites available that we're understanding what needs to go into the stream of commerce to utilize those sites for the various vendors that'll support this. So we really are seeing, you're right, we're seeing a lot of interest, and I think Virginia is really on the radar now for this industry. There was one question, John, somebody asked the question of why'd you set up an office in Europe? And the reality is the big players, the players that are building the foundations and the substations and those sorts of things, they're in Germany and Denmark and the UK, and in all likelihood they'll be the people that take those big contracts. But there's going to be a lot of people that become vendors for them, and that's really, I think, the opportunity for Virginia companies.
Yeah, and Doug, I think it's important to point out that while there some of the larger components and bigger manufacturing definitely will want to look at those marine terminals, there are so many subcomponents that go into an offshore wind turbine. Railing, steps, ladders. Think about it. There are going to be roughly 190 elevators offshore. That's something you don't think about. There's an elevator. As I mentioned, these are taller than the Washington Monument. So you take an elevator up to the top. So somebody's got to be able to manufacture those elevators. They have to be able to, as we get into operations and move forward with the maintenance and repair of those elevators. Certainly those don't necessarily need to be at the marine terminal. So as Doug mentioned, there's a number of other sites that would be suitable for manufacturing that you would not want to actually probably be at the marine terminal, but have good access with roads and make sure that you have the infrastructure to support your manufacturing or warehousing facilities for those types of items. So a lot of diverse opportunities and diverse locations that I'm working with economic development with Doug and many of the entities around the Port of Virginia and the VMA, as well as VEDP, that we're all working on making sure that we have a good catalog of those. And Doug and the team I mentioned, they're getting everyone around to see those. There was another question about oyster reefs. It's a great question. Moving through the presentation, one item that we have learned from the European experience, since they're much farther along than we are with offshore wind, as you put the foundation in and then the scour protection around the turbines, and then the cable routes the entire way in are covered with scour protection, large stone. And these cables are buried, between 6 and 9 feet deep. But the reason that they're covered with scour is so that nobody comes along and drops an anchor and it would go down through the seabed and damage the cables. So obviously those create artificial reefs and provide a great opportunity to promote biodiversity around the turbines as well as the cable route coming in. So I think there's an opportunity to that, and we'll be glad to make sure that we connect, different organizations with the project team as we go along and can further explore that. So I'll take that back to them. And then there was one more question about training from Mr. Gillespie. And for the primary certification group would be the Global Wind Organization. And their program entails safety and some operational aspects for the certification. So they have standards. They would come in, review your curriculum, and look at the certifications of the instructors and your facility. And that's the primary organization that you would want to reach out to do that. And if you need any help, Mr. Gillespie, with getting any contacts, we'll certainly be able to provide you with that. So I think that covers the bulk of the questions as we go forward, and look forward to working with all of you as we move forward. Doug, I'll turn it back over to you for any wrap up.
John, I've heard you make this variations of this presentation a lot, and I got to tell you, I learned something every single time I didn't know. Hadn't thought about the reef and the oysters. So it is incredibly complex, and there's amazing opportunities. You made one comment that I'll build on and then close us out, which is the economic development directors in each of your localities are very engaged in this process and been kept up to speed, and they're another sort of gateway into this whole conversation and these opportunities. So feel free to reach out to your local economic development office or the Alliance or Dominion. But we're all, again, working to be coordinated and speaking with one voice. So can't thank the speakers enough this morning. Frankly, can't thank the participants enough. We had a great crowd, and you all stayed. And clearly that shows some strong interest. And we will continue to build this industry in Hampton Roads and Virginia. And I hope everyone has a wonderful morning and a great day. Thank you all.